What's up guys, in this video I want to share with you guys some of the best pieces of art advice that I found on TikTok. These are all going to be art tips that I can get behind and I think will actually help you guys out, especially if you're just an art baby. So in this video there will be no questionable art tips, no loss of our sanity, and most importantly of all, it'll be filled with happiness and joy. With that being said, let's get right into it. Here is our first art tip.
First things first, try not to zoom in on your work as much. Sometimes you'll be rendering a lot and then you zoom out and you can't even see it.
And there you go, simple as that. First tip, don't zoom in too much. As the video creator mentioned, sometimes you put in details that are so small and so insignificant that when you zoom out, you can't even see it. And if you think about the way we consume a lot of media content today, it's through a very, very small screen. So when you're putting your work online, think about what kind of details are actually going to be visible to the people who are viewing your work. I mean, chances are if you're putting it on Instagram, it's going to get compressed even further. So the little highlights that you're putting on the pores of the skin of your character are just not going to be visible at all. And that's not the only reason. Sometimes if you zoom in so much and get so fixated, you can get lost in this kind of perfectionist mindset and you lose sight of the bigger picture. You stop moving throughout the painting, and next thing you know, you've been drawing one single eye for the past 7 hours, and that's not helpful to you. Now let's move on to our second piece of art advice.
Number 2, study from art books. This is a great way to see a variety of different artist styles and work process. Art books can range anywhere from tutorial books to behind the scenes of movies and animated movies, as well as collections of artists' work.
I think this is just something that doesn't get talked about enough because we often feel like we can find everything we need through a simple Google search or a Pinterest search. But I think the best thing about art books is you get an actual behind the scenes look at the way artists work. And depending on the book, sometimes you get blurbs of writing that shows you their insight, their thinking, and having access to that in a physical form is so helpful to you as a developing artist. This Into the Spider-Verse book in the background here has taught me so much about stylizing characters, about understanding what styles I like and what I didn't like, and how to render things in a simplified way. And I'm so thankful that I decided to pick that book up. But you know what, guys? It doesn't end there. So this is another book that I picked up recently. This is the art from Avatar: The Way of Water. Now, whether you like the movie or not, I think it has some of the best art and design by some of the most skilled industry professionals. And just flipping through the book, you're going to see a lot of beautiful paintings with blurbs of writing about the thinking and reasoning behind why things were designed the way they were. And having that in a physical form is just so extremely helpful, especially if you're a developing artist. Now for our third video, this is something that I really like to see, and it's something that I do myself, and I want more people to understand how important it is to do this.
So I was scrolling on Pinterest and I stumbled across one of my old drawings and I thought, I can redraw that. I was in the middle of work, but I dropped everything because I wanted to redraw it. The 2017 drawing was very flat and very shape heavy, but I feel like I didn't have quite an understanding of how shapes work back then. So we're giving this girl still very shape heavy look, but with my updated style.
And there it is. I mean, that's beautiful. This showcases 5 years of personal artistic growth. And this is really something that I always encourage people to do. If you have old pieces, if you have pieces from like 2017, 2016, or even as recent as 2020, you can grab those files, pull them up, and just take a look, see what are the things that you like now and what are the things that you don't like. And I want to say that in like 95% of cases, you're going to find things that you want to do differently. And the best way to visualize your growth is to take that old piece and redraw it. And it really is a lot of fun. It makes you think about things that you were not aware of before, and it makes you realize just how far you've come on your art journey. I mean, just seeing that difference is going to encourage you to keep going and to keep learning. I think it's something that everybody should try at least once. Now let's take a look at advice number 4.
Improve your drawing skills. 3 drawing practices. Draw from life. Set up things or just draw your surroundings. Draw things multiple times. You will see progress over time.
That is what I want to talk about. Number 1 and 2, these 2 tips kind of go hand in hand because in order to understand how an object works, you have to study how it looks from real life or from photographs. You have to have something grounding your drawing in reality so that you have that reference. You understand what it's supposed to look like before you put it on paper. And point number 2 here is so important. You have to have repetition. Take a look at your favorite artists and your favorite pieces from your favorite artists. They were not able to create that subject out of thin air. Instead, they had tens of thousands of repeated practice of that same object or person or environment, whatever it is that they're drawing. In order to achieve that level of mastery, that level of effortlessness, you have to put in a lot of repeated work. This is why oftentimes, I recommend doing short drawings in greater quantities to people who are just starting out and just starting to practice. For example, I think it'll be much more helpful for your learning if you were to study, let's say, 30 different heads over the span of 10 minutes per head, versus if you spent all of that time on just drawing and rendering and detailing a single head. And even though it doesn't take as long, you're still adding all of that crucial base information into your mental library. All right, and here's advice number 5.
Reasons why sketchbooks are so important. Also, this doesn't just apply to artists. I think this can apply to anyone. First reason is that it's a place for you to do anything. You have the freedom to express whatever idea you want, from doodles, writings, or anything that's on your mind. There's no rules in what you place in your sketchbook. Second, having a sketchbook helps you build consistency in your practice. When you get into the habit of doing something in your sketchbook, you'll eventually see the patterns of your work, and this will help develop your style. Third, it's a great place to refresh your mind and look back at if you have any art block. So if you haven't gotten a sketchbook or drawn in your sketchbook yet, this is definitely your sign to do it.
100%. Sketchbooks are amazing. And even though this is like a fancy, beautiful watercolor painting, you don't have to do that. You can start with just a pencil. What I really love about sketchbooks is it forces you to throw out that perfectionist mindset. It's just practice. It's for yourself. It's purely for you and your growth. And if it is your personal sketchbook, most of that stuff is not going to go online. Most people aren't going to be able to see it, and nobody's going to be able to scrutinize your work. So you can really have a peace of mind when you're creating that sketch or that watercolor painting, because you know this is for you and you can relax and just let your mind be free. It's amazing. If you don't own a sketchbook, I highly recommend you get one. And point number 6, this one is really important and it gets a little bit more technical from here, but let's take a look. Beginner tip: throw away your airbrush. Instead, block in all your shadows as hard edges and then take a nice smudge tool to soften your edges. Now, you don't necessarily have to follow this workflow, but this is something that I like to do for my work as well. The reason being, when you look at anything in real life, there's always going to be a combination of hard and soft edges. Even on human faces, it's present on still life objects, it's present in nature, it's everywhere. There's a combination of hard and soft. And the most common technical mistake that I see from beginners is there's a lot of reliance on the airbrush. It's as though there's a bit of hesitancy to put down a really harsh and direct shadow. So you want to just make it soft so that in case it's not right, you can't really tell where it starts and where it ends. But that can make your drawing look weirdly unnatural and weirdly fuzzy. So instead, when you start with a hard edge and you try to use your smudge tool to blend out the edges that are supposed to be soft, then chances are you're going to end up with a drawing that has both hard and soft edges. And that is going to look way more convincing than if you were to do the whole thing with your airbrush. But again, that's not to say the airbrush has no place in art. The airbrush is great, but just don't rely too heavily on it, especially if you're a beginner. And here is another really good piece of advice.
Learn basic perspective. This will really help out if you want to draw background.
Now, he mentions that perspective is going to help a lot when it comes to drawing backgrounds, which is true. Now, when your perspective doesn't work properly in a background, it's very obvious. However, that is not the only place where perspective is going to apply. Now, if you've seen our roast videos where we talk about the eyes being in weird places and facial features being all over the place, that's also because of perspective. One thing that really tends to throw off a lot of beginners is not understanding how it works when it comes to a human face, because no matter what you're drawing, as long as it's a three-dimensional object, it's going to be affected by perspective. And if you don't know your fundamentals, it's going to be very hard to draw faces, draw hands, draw anything 3D from different angles. I know perspective can be boring, but it is very important. And that brings us on to our next one.
His art's only good because he has expensive supplies.
A very bad misconception is thinking someone's art is good because of the expensive supplies they have, which is something that can be very discouraging for beginners who might not have a lot of money to be able to purchase the supplies that they want. But you have to understand this, and this is why I recommend a sketchbook and a pencil to absolutely everybody. Your skill level, how much you have in your mental library, how much you've studied, how much you've practiced, that is 95% of what determines the quality of your work, not the supplies you have. You can give a great artist a piece of paper and a pencil that costs maybe like a few dollars, and they'll be able to make something absolutely stunning. Whereas if you give a beginner a $5,000 drawing tablet, sure, their experience is going to be a little bit more comfortable, but they are still going to be a beginner. So no matter what, do not let that misconception discourage you from practicing art, and don't use it as an excuse. It's 2023, new year, new you, no more excuses. And we're going to end off with some fun pieces of advice. If you're in an art block in a slump right now, I think this is something that you should really take a look at. See, number one, pick an object, turn the opacity down, and find the core shape. That's the important part, the shape. Multiply the shape and explore different versions. Turn the opacity down and sketch away. That is so much fun. I really love this one because I do a lot of art challenges that I find on TikTok, and this seems like it would be such a fun art challenge. Maybe we should give it a shot, but it's just something that you can do if you want to just get your mind off things and just let your creative juices just flow and try to make something out of a simple shape. And I think it's a really fun exercise, especially if you want to specialize more in character design. Try it out, it's not gonna hurt. And of course, last but not least, let's have a look at this one.
I suck at drawing? Don't say that. You shut your mouth. You look at me in the eyes. You will draw something. You're good at it. You're based. You're epic. Don't tell yourself you can't draw. If you want to draw, you can go do it. If you don't, you're just an idiot. You're a loser. And I don't like losers in here. You will draw. And so what? So what if you think it looks like Can't get worse. Can only get better. And honestly, you might surprise yourself.
That's pretty funny, but the core message is there. Don't tell yourself you suck. Don't say you can't. Here's the thing, you look at my work, I'm still learning. Every single artist that you know, doesn't matter how good you think their work is, doesn't matter how established they are in their careers, they're still learning, and we're all learning from one another and from the things that we see around us. So the next time you make a drawing and it looks like an absolute abomination, which will happen, don't say you suck. Instead, learn from it, move on to the next. You're learning just like the rest of us. And that does it for this video of some of the best pieces of art advice that we can find on TikTok. So I hope you guys learned something new from this video. I hope you found it helpful. Check out my Patreon if you want to see monthly process videos and tutorial videos, and go take a look at another video of mine. Maybe you'll find something even more helpful there. With that being said though, feel free to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss future content. I really appreciate you guys, and I'll see you on the next video. All this talking to a camera, man. Oh. Good. Good. You can go now. I'm not gonna do anything. You can go now.